First News with Keeler in the morning on WIBX and WIBX950.com.
John Decker, he is the chief White House correspondent with Gray TV. And John is on the line right now. Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you. Hope you're doing well today.
We're here, John. We're here.
Okay.
That's step number one for us.
That is step number one, Bill.
What did you think? Yesterday, President Biden did a town hall, and at times sounded like he was pleading with Americans to get the vaccine. What did you think of his performance last night?
It wasn't the strongest. I watched not only the town hall, but I'm always curious to see, if my view, the way I viewed the town hall, is the same as the individuals that are sitting back and watching it. And it was like we were watching two different town halls.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I don't know how CNN puts together the audience, but it seemed to me that you needed to have a voter registration card which indicated you were a Democrat to sit in that town hall, because he got a lot of easy questions.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, it seemed sometimes like he forgot that he was president and he's actually in the White House. It seemed like he thought he was running for president. And spoke about how he's the only one who's done this or the only one who's done that. And, maybe when he was running for president, he was the only one of those competing for the Democratic nomination.
Right.
But he's president now.
Right.
And I was a little confused in terms of the way he expressed himself in that regard. So, there are a lot of things that he's dealing with right now. Certainly the coronavirus variant, that is a big issue, obviously. But also on the legislative front, he got a bit of a defeat yesterday, and that was, I think it's a temporary defeat, for his infrastructure spending plan. I think it's going to be up for a vote likely as early as Monday of next week, and I think it'll have a more favorable result on Monday based upon a statement that was put out by Republicans who are taking part in the negotiations associated with that bill.
I do agree. We're getting to a point where this is going to be damaging for everybody if something isn't done, for both Republicans and Democrats. Because I had said if this was President Trump wanted an infrastructure deal, and Pelosi and the Democrats did not want to give him that victory, and right. We're in the same boat now, where now there's a Democrat in the office and they don't want to give Biden this because this is a long lasting gift that'll keep giving long after Biden. And or long after Trump, and neither party wanted to budge. But I almost feel like Congress is at a point where it could be damaging to them if people walk away and say these people can't get anything done.
Well, that's right. If you ask a member of Congress, do you think that America's roads, bridges, highways, etc., need repair? I think you get almost a universal yes from those members of Congress. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, administration after administration has tried to just pass an infrastructure bill, and even though you agree with the concept, you don't agree with the amount or the scope. Right. This $1.2 trillion plan is something that it seems to me could get the necessary support in the Senate. That's where all the action is. In the House, it's not a problem because you just need a simple majority, and Democrats have that. But in the Senate, I think that on Monday of next week, you might see a legislative victory by President Biden in the sense that there will be a procedural vote. And I think that unlike what happened yesterday, the vote will be a positive one for the Biden White House, and that will move that bill forward.
Well, it could also be a positive one for Republicans who can say, listen, we've been able to bring it down to something more manageable and take out some of the ridiculousness and focus on infrastructure here.
Well, that's right. So the bill that they're contemplating voting on in a procedural sense is infrastructure in the way that you and I, Bill, and others think of infrastructure. That is not the same as the $3.5 trillion human infrastructure, as the White House calls it, human infrastructure legislation. That, I think, is going nowhere. It's too large. It's increasing the size of the federal deficit, and I just don't see, A, bipartisanship on that, or B, I don't see that passing even through the reconciliation process, because I just don't see certain Democrats, Joe Manchin among them, in the Senate signing on to doing away with the reconciliation process. I'm sorry, doing away with the filibuster process. He's already indicated that he's a no when it comes to that, and I just don't see the appetite for that. So the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, which I said will likely be passed in a procedural sense on Monday, that may be the last big legislative victory for President Biden over the course of the next 2 years. But it's a big one if he achieves it.
I want to ask your thoughts on Pelosi's decision to block a couple of members in this investigation into the January 6th insurrection. What was supposed to be bipartisan probably was never going to be. She makes a move that Republicans have pounced on by restricting 2 members. Now everybody's walked away from it. On the other side, Liz Cheney coming out with some tough words for Republicans. What are your thoughts on the whole thing here?
Yeah, well, on paper, you still have a bipartisan select committee because of Liz Cheney. Mm-hmm. She is a Republican, so on paper, it is bipartisan. But I was surprised by this move by the House Speaker, in which she refused to appoint Jim Jordan from Ohio and Jim Banks from Indiana. That's a privilege that she has as the Speaker, certainly. I just did not think that she would invoke that privilege. Because you're never, if you look at any committee in Congress, whether you're talking about the House Budget Committee, the House Ways and Means Committee, if you're House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and you look at the Republican members of those committees, you're never going to be satisfied with every Republican on that committee, clearly. But that, you work together, you work as a committee, and so I just did not think that the fact that Jim Jordan and Jim Banks are indeed strong supporters of former President Trump should be disqualifying for them serving on this select committee. But obviously, House Speaker Pelosi saw it a different way. She said that out of respect for the integrity of the investigation, she rejects the recommendations of Banks and Jordan to the select committee. And now there is no bipartisanship in the way that I think McCarthy and Pelosi envisioned it when this process began.
Is it true that the Speaker of the House has never used that privilege?
She has never used that privilege. That is correct, and she can use that privilege. By the way,
I'm not saying committees. I'm not just saying
she can use it for any committee.
Not her, but any Speaker of the House. I read yesterday that.
I see.
I read yesterday that actually it was from our Congresswoman who said no Speaker of the House has ever invoked that privilege.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I wouldn't, put money on it, but that does sound right because, like I said, it is a privilege that you have, but it's rarely and maybe never invoked just because you have to have respect for the minority and the minority's ability to sort of put together the individuals that they want to sit on various congressional committees.
And again, be careful what you do while you're in power because it might be done to you when you're not.
That's exactly right. And, midterms will be here before you know it. And like you said, things can flip. And when the shoe's on the other foot, you see what being on the minority is like. That's often why you see members retiring in such large numbers. They hate being in the minority. So you often see, members who are in the minority retiring before an upcoming election because being in the minority in the House of Representatives in particular, Bill, it's not fun. You don't have any power, really, like you do in the Senate, where you do have a significant amount of power, even in the minority. Even a freshman in the minority in the Senate has enormous power that you don't see in the House of Representatives.
John, thank you. We'll do it again next week.
I look forward to it. Thanks a lot, Bill.
Have a great day. You do the same.